Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday at noon, Sierra Club Iowa chapter goes live to give you an environmental update. And this week, we have a big update for you in terms of our bill that we've been fighting for 4 years now. This week, Governor Reynolds decided to veto the bill. So we're going to talk to you about what the bill would have done, what she said, and then some of the responses that are happening as well. So I will share my screen and we'll get started here. All right. So Governor Reynolds went against Iowans, turned her backs on farmers and Iowans, and vetoed the property rights bill, House File 639. So what would this bill have done? We called it the omnibus bill because it did a lot of different things, and it had a lot of landowner and process protections. First off, it would have had liability protections. We know that landowners all along Summit's route are unable to get guaranteed liability in the event of a rupture. And so that bill would have helped make sure that that liability did not fall on the landowners who do not want this pipeline on their land in the first place. Kind of common sense stuff. It had a requirement that the Iowa Utilities Commission must attend in person any live testimony at the hearings and have at least one of their members attend the informational meetings. Another common sense thing that people who are going to be making these decisions have to actually show up to the meetings to gather information. An important thing was right to intervene. Right now, and traditionally with Iowa Utilities Commission, pretty much anyone who says, I have a stake in this, it will impact me in some way, was allowed to participate or what's called intervene in the Iowa Utilities Commission process. In the Summit case, and when they got a new Iowa Utilities Commission chair, Eric Helland, he kind of changed that precedent and decided to start denying anyone who didn't have the pipeline directly on their land. That denied the right to participate to people who farm the land that's impacted or rent it and farm it. Those who are neighbors, it's really close to their house, but it's not actually on their land. People who travel the roads that it crosses, use the parks that it's near, all of those things. So this bill would have guaranteed people the right to intervene. It would have said that there were no Iowa Utilities Commission sanctions on interveners. It strengthened the definition of common carrier and public use and basically said that a pipeline company, a hazardous liquid pipeline company that wants the right to use eminent domain must prove that it meets our laws for common carrier and public use. And then lastly, it also had a one and done provision saying a pipeline, specifically a carbon pipeline company can only get one permit and they cannot renew it after 25 years. That's common sense, protecting landowners from forever easements and knowing that these pipelines are reliant on a tax credit that's set to expire before those 25 years. People shouldn't be forced into signing an easement for forever for who knows what after these pipelines expire. Now, after 4 years of really hard work trying to get bills through the legislature, we got this bill through the House and through the Senate. It passed the House with 85 votes, and then miraculously, it passed the Senate with 27 votes. And that took a lot of work. We had to get our senators to work together to go against leadership. And that put the bill on Governor Reynolds' desk. And let's just say it right here, it's a common sense property rights bill that addresses some of the problems that Iowans are facing today when it comes to the Iowa Utilities Commission process and the Summit Carbon Pipeline. But Governor Reynolds vetoed it, and her reasons just don't add up. We can poke holes through almost every sentence in her statement. Here are a few of the things that really stood out to us. In her statement about her veto decision, she says reasonable people can and do disagree about when government or a private company acting with government approval should be allowed to take private land. Well, Governor Reynolds, I would say that when 78% of Iowans oppose eminent domain for private gain and for carbon pipeline projects like Summits, that would say that 78% of us are reasonable people and we disagree that this company should be allowed to use eminent domain. So it's kind of insulting that she's kind of insinuating that we are not reasonable. She went on to say, I've consistently said that if eminent domain is used, it must be rare, fair, and a last resort. Governor Reynolds, what is rare, fair, and a last resort about what's happened over the last 4 years for Iowans facing the Summit carbon pipeline? Take a look at this map on the screen. This is just Summit's phase 1 route. Every single one of those dots is a property that was granted eminent domain for Summit. That's not rare, fair, or last resort. We have documented how unfair the hearing was. She was completely wrong with that statement. She said it sets a troubling precedent, or the bill would have set a troubling precedent that threatens Iowa's energy, reliability, economy, and reputation as a place where businesses can invest with confidence. The real troubling precedent set is that the Iowa Utilities Commission approved eminent domain for Summit Carbon Solutions. And Governor Reynolds, aren't farmers businesses? Shouldn't they be able to invest in their land with confidence? Because right now, Iowans across the state cannot, because they are not sure if any company can come in and take their land against their will. She also said that she asked the Trump administration if carbon pipelines are safe. And the new director of PHMSA, who was appointed by Trump, said that they are subject to robust regulations and have an excellent safety performance record. We simply know that's not true. Safety issues not up for debate. Carbon pipelines are not safe. They are hazardous liquid pipelines and they are dangerous. And we know that because PHMSA told us so. After the carbon pipeline rupture in Satartia, they started a process to create new carbon pipeline safety rules because the current rules were not adequate for these kind of pipelines. Those rules were thrown out when the Trump administration came in. And so that's, a clear signal that we have an administration that is also on the same side of Summit. We also know that theirs aren't safe, and we can back it up by just the amount of ruptures and incidents that have happened. This is just one pipeline in this map that you can see on the screen, the Denbury pipeline. The star at the top is the Satartia rupture. And then there was another rupture, which is not even on this map yet, because that's where this map came from, was a rupture in Sulphur, Louisiana on this same pipeline route. And every single one of these yellow dots or triangles is another incident on that one pipeline alone. It's not a matter of if these pipelines are going to rupture, it's a matter of when and where. Governor Reynolds also said that Iowa leads the nation in biofuels. We are at the forefront of turning corn into low carbon energy. We'd like to respond to that. At what cost? Our lands, our legacy, our safety, our water, our property rights. At what cost, Governor Reynolds? She also said, I agree we can do more to limit the use of eminent domain, promote transparency, and ensure reasonable land restoration. Governor Reynolds, what exactly have you done to protect a single Iowan from carbon pipelines in the last 4 years? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. We brought well thought out common sense proposals to you. We requested meetings for 4 years to discuss this issue with you and hear your thoughts. You refused. That is not a good excuse, Governor Reynolds. A real leader leads when something comes up. You did not lead, you hid. There's a lot of righteous anger and frustration coming from many people across the state. We held a landowner press conference yesterday. I will put a link in the chat as soon as this lunch and learn is over so that you can watch that video. It's really powerful. And then we have a lot of elected officials starting to weigh in. And these are just some of the comments. There'll be more if you probably just search on social media, carbon pipeline veto, and lots of interesting things are coming up. There's some infighting happening up at the Capitol. Corey Serwinski, a Bremer County supervisor, said, her reasoning is absolutely flawed from any and every angle that you examine. This veto is an outright attack on our inalienable rights, that we, the people, are protected by both the U.S. and Iowa constitutions. She has invalidated the will of the people and the value of the individual vote at the ballot box. Representative Stephen Holt said this fight is far from over, and it has exposed, unfortunately, the difference between what I call country club Republicans and grassroots Republicans who respect landowners' rights in the Constitution. Representative Bobby Kaufman, who has known to be very fiery, he commented that Reynolds' legacy is now spitting in the faces of Iowans and being Bruce Rastetter's errand girl. Senator Janice Weiner said there's simply no amount of political posturing or legislative stonewalling that can deny the fact that Iowans' right to private property should never be infringed upon for private gain. And finally, Representative Brian Meyer said it's no surprise that Governor Reynolds has once again sided with her political donors rather than Iowa landowners. Iowa House Democrats and Republicans work together to protect property rights. So what's next? This does not mean the fight is over. Far from it. We know that right now Representative Pat Grassley has asked representatives to sign a petition to try to override the veto and reconvene the legislature. We don't know if that would happen in the Senate because we had a tough time getting that bill through initially, let alone trying to get a supermajority. But we know that process is in the works. We know we're going to be back in 2026 to put another bill on Governor Reynolds' desk, and we know that we'll be stronger and have more allies in 2026. We still have an appeal of the Summit Phase 1 decision that's going to be going through the courts. And we're at the very beginning of Summit's Phase 2 Iowa Utilities Commission process. We've got tons of local, state, and federal work to do. So there is a lot to do. We are going to stop the Summit carbon pipeline because every time we get knocked down, we come back stronger. So what can you do? Right now, I think we need to make it loud and clear that we are not happy with Governor Reynolds' decision. So anything you can do to post it on social media, write a letter to the editor, but also contact your representative and senator and let them know that you are angry with this decision and you expect them to take action in 2026. 2026, as we know, is an election year. And so they'll be even more so listening to what people of the state want. And we need to make sure that this is the main priority in 2026. We will keep you updated as this progresses, but like we said, it's far from over. We're going to stop Summit. We just have to stay strong and keep persevering. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a good weekend, and we will see you next Friday. Thanks. Bye.